Hey guys, it's David. I want to do a short video about kind of focusing, not quite on this article, but whether or not these things that people are wishing for Splatoon 3 are actually going to happen. Trying to look at the likelihood of it happening. This is based on this article. I'll link it in the description. Here, what needs to be changed in Splatoon 3 for its competitive scene. So let's look and see how likely I think that these things are actually going to happen. So, fix online play. To me, it's kind of not really the way anyone wants it to. It might be an improvement. Of course, everyone wants dedicated servers for their games, but that just isn't going to happen. Uh, there was a well, somewhat recent, but over here, Oatmeal Dome mentioned that Nintendo was replacing its multiplayer server system NEX with a new system called NPLN. So that's supposed to, hopefully, that is going to help in some way. I mean, something's better than nothing. Uh, I don't think we'll get dedicated servers anytime soon or at all, especially the way Nintendo monetizes their games, where you just buy the game. And of course, you do have to pay like $20 a year for their online service, which isn't that much, in my opinion. But they don't really monetize the game afterwards. Like you don't. There's no like recurring payments or stuff to buy like you'd see in other games, with that sell skins and other stuff like that. So I I just don't see them taking on the money needed for those type of games. Money needed for those type of things. Come on now, cat, move out of the way. Uh, so yeah, that's not gonna happen. And I think the big thing that servers, blah blah blah, all that stuff, is the simple fact that the Switch doesn't come with an Ethernet adapter on it. It is out of the box Wi-Fi, and that means there's still going to be a ton of people playing on Wi-Fi. It's just the way it is. It's never as reliable as a wire connection, and the amount of people that you have playing on Wi-Fi isn't going to change. I think the percentage. So it's going to remain an issue, no matter how dedicated your servers are. I mean, the only thing I think that might really help is if people could actually rejoin uh, lobbies after they got kicked out. If they have like a blip in the internet connection where they could actually pop back in and still play, because there's sometimes where you'll have a game like locked in, someone will DC. You can hold them off for like a minute or two, but you end up losing the game eventually because it's just so much of an advantage, and it sucks to lose those games because you're like, we had this, we were gonna win. That would be something, but again, it's not gonna improve that much. Get rid of map rotations. This is definitely something people wanted for a while. I don't think it's gonna happen, and I have this article from, well, this is a ways back, so maybe they've changed their thoughts on this, but this was interesting. Let's see. In which designer Jordan Armando talks. It's not just language, it's a way to perceive games and the users. I see it on Splatoon right now. You look at Splatoon, then you look at Overwatch. They're two totally different games. Overwatch is a self service game. You boot the game, you say, hey, I like this mode, I like this character. I'm only ever going to play this mode, this character, this map. You're like, I'm going to get what I want. It's a but in Japan, everything is tailored. You probably heard some person's TED talk in which she went to a restaurant in Japan and tried to order sugar in her green tea. People at KSA, one does not put sugar in green tea, and then we don't have sugar. But when she ordered coffee instead, it did come with sugar. In Japan, there's a sense of we're making this for you, and this is how we think this thing is better enjoyed. This is why in Splatoon map rotates every couple of hours. The modes change. I bought this game. Why can't I just enjoy the game I want? That's not how we think here. Yes, you did buy the game, but we made this game. We're pretty confident about how this game should be enjoyed. If you stick with us, you get past your initial resistance, you're going to have the time of your life with this game. You're going to love it. So, I'm assuming they haven't really changed that philosophy. That seems very Nintendo-ish, and how they do things, where some of their decisions seem like they're off the wall, but they stick to it. I would assume rotations are still going to be in the game. Uh, the other thing is, like, I'm not sure just how, if you got rid of rotations, what would be the alternative, where you just, play whatever map you want, whatever mode you want. Now, how would that work in this space? Is there enough people playing to enjoy it that way? I don't know. And Nintendo's, I think, really against having long wait times in their games. Just, I think, from a philosophical perspective, because they haven't done this yet, and I really hope they do improve the quality of games for Western players. At least give them the option of waiting longer to get a higher power game, so they're not stuck in that situation where you lose one. You can go nine wins, one loss, and still be negative. Which is a ridiculous, I think, ridiculous situation. I think I saw Keo tweet the other day that it's like a 90-something win percentage on tower control, but he's only 2,600 because, which is kind of crazy. I mean, maybe he hasn't played enough, but it's ridiculous to be that low on the power scale and have that kind of win percentage. That's, I think, the roughest part beyond rotations is that kind of situation for competitive players. But I don't see rotations changing. I think it's very unlikely that they'll change on that. Could be wrong, but to me, maybe there is, like, some players have been voicing their opinion on what they feel need to be done, pointing towards a Mario 8 system style of voting on maps. I don't know. That could happen, some sort of alternative that isn't quite, you pick whatever you want, but maybe something to avoid some of those crappier maps and modes that people really hate, like Moray Towers, and like Port Mackerel, Kelp Dome, some of that stuff. Some of those Splatoon 1 maps may not even come back in Splatoon 3. You never know. There's going to be such a, if they add a bunch of maps in Splatoon 3, they may even phase out some of those less popular Splatoon 1 maps. So, we'll see. Add a replay mode. This one, I think, is more likely to happen than anything else that's been mentioned so far. With the... let me adjust it. With it being the same, like a sequel on the same system, I feel like they don't have as much pressure on the back end to make things. So I would assume they'd focus more on features, new stuff like improvements, tweaking stuff, and that's I think my best hope for Splatoon 3 is that it's just going to be a dramatically improved Splatoon 2. Like they're really going to refine a lot of the stuff. We'll add some new stuff in, but a lot of refinement and a lot of thought, and adding something like a replay mode would be awesome, in my opinion. Great feature for competitive players, casual players, to just, look at their games. I guess Smash Bros. Have it, so it's not something, Nintendo hasn't done before. That'd be a really cool thing. Provide a better training room. I think they're definitely going to improve the training room. I mean, they did it from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2. I can definitely see that adding more stuff in with Splatoon 3. I could definitely see that happening. I think that's very likely. I don't know if we'll get everything we want, like, customizable, like, I would like, them to, like, be able to customize their movements. I would love, different modes. We got unlimited ink, unlimited special, you could practice certain specials. I would love you can go into maps and practice, your special usage, or, set up dummies there that you could, shoot at, for certain things. I think, especially, it's hard to kind of practice shooting over obstacles or up obstacles, especially like with like a splasher. I would love, be able to do that. But we'll see what we get. I assume we are definitely going to get better stuff for uh, for the training room. This this is a big one, and it's something everyone wants: support for the competitive scene. Uh, and then he talks about how there has been different things in Japan where with support for the competitive scene. Nintendo being a Japanese company, I'm assuming they have. It's a lot easier for them to make partnerships in in Japan with Japanese companies. I don't know how it looks outside of the U.S. Whether that's a lot harder. Just different cultural expectations. Uh, to me, I don't see the support that people want. I don't see it happening because it would require a dramatic shift from what Nintendo wants from esports. From what I've seen and what they've shown, it's esports for them, or their support, occasional support for esports scene with like opens and maybe supporting some events outside like Evo or that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, I'm sneezing. My nose is they'll do it to promote their games while they're selling, while they're in rotation, and that's it. It's just a way to get eyes on their game, potentially get some sales. They're not looking at esports as it's a standalone way to generate revenue or as something really important to keep going in perpetual or perpetuity, if that's the word I'm looking for. I mean, you see Melee is probably one of the most popular fighting games in history, if you want to consider it a fighting game. Some might not, but it's ridiculously popular. It gets zero support from Nintendo. Smash in general. Sorry, my nose is bothering me. But it gets like zero support despite being one of the biggest fighting games, if not the biggest fighting game in the world right now. But you don't see much. The players that are making it, professionally, do so more off things like YouTube and Twitch. A while back, I had people like Zero saying like, "Hey, it's not even worth it for me to tour around now because I make more money, doing Twitch and YouTube, making content like that than I do going around winning." Like he went around, won a bunch of things. I think he made like 50K or something like that, which isn't too great for if you're winning like every competitive event. You could definitely probably make more with his sort of reach, social media, just focusing on that, which is sad. And then of course you had the sort of all this pandemic stuff with various online issues where that kind of shut down because Nintendo's online frankly sucks. But I just don't see Nintendo like really going in the competitive scene the way competitive players want. And the sad thing is until they I won't mess with that. Until they do something with it, then nothing's really going to happen as far as like a large amount of support for Nintendo games because with Nintendo sort of controlling that IP, if they don't give the seal of approval to any sort of organization that may want to like try and build something or see an opportunity with the competitive scene, they're not going to do it because you don't want Nintendo deciding, hey, all of a sudden, hey, we're going to make our own esports scene now, and then either they sue the crap out of them or they compete with them, and I don't know how you compete against the actual company that's making the game. So, I mean, so far, what I've seen, I think besides maybe like CSGO may not be tied directly to the game maker, but depends really on who's doing it, whether they allow that kind of stuff to happen. And Nintendo is ridiculously protective of its IP, so I don't see anything happening really beyond what we have right now. Maybe there'll be a few more opens, or maybe there'll be something different, a little more, but I don't see it being something that, someone could play the game competitively and make a living doing. Basically, if you're a high level Splatoon player, your best option is to make content and use that to supplement while you're at school, or if you're out there working a full-time job. I don't see that how you're going to do that, but maybe you can juggle those sort of things, like make content and play competitively and work a job. I don't see it. As some of these players get older, they're probably just going to sort of drop out, which is what you've seen many people do. So that's it for that was it for these things that happening. So two things I think are going to happen. The big ones that people really want. Nah, I don't see it happening. Sadly, I wouldn't get your hopes up. Let's say that, because I think they require some huge philosophical changes on the part of Nintendo that there's definitely a disconnect between the West and Japan as far as what the player base wants versus what Nintendo's willing to give. Of course, in the end, doesn't matter because they still make ridiculously good games, and Splatoon 3 is going to be fun as hell. So I don't see people saying like, I'm not going to buy this game, I'm not going to play this game. People that love Splatoon are still going to play it. Nintendo obviously makes insanely good games. So despite, their quirks and their weird ways of doing some things, they're still going to be successful because at the end of the day, the game is good. And I guess that's what really matters in the end. All right, guys, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. Are these things what do you think are actually going to happen? Are any of these wishes going to come true? I'll leave links to those the references I mentioned in the description. So I'll talk to you later. Bye.